Welcome. You're on the Fringe show. I'm Tatiana Zalan, and I go live every Friday at 2 p.m. Dubai time. The Fringe helps you to navigate the rapidly changing world and increase the odds of your success. Here we discuss technology, startups, entrepreneurs, and mental models of successful people so that you too can take advantage of the opportunities in the new digital world. Today is my episode 44, and I have a very unusual title for it. It's called On Tamagotchi Babies, Metaverses, and Space Nations. There was an article, or rather a series of articles that I read a couple of days ago, actually, on Tamagotchi Kids. And it's kind of very interesting, and it intrigued me, and this is what we're going to talk about. So my question to you is, are you ready for virtual babies? They will look like you, they will cuddle you, they will cost you $25 per month to bring them up in the metaverse, and you can cancel them if they're naughty at any time. Do you like this scenario? I personally don't, and this is why I decided to make the show. Apart from discussing this interesting and strange idea, I also thought that I will explore some of the alternatives, more inspiring alternatives to this dystopian future. A usual disclaimer before we go on, the views that I express here on the show are my own, and they do not reflect the official views of institutions and other organizations I'm associated with or employed by. Now, who are Tamagotchi kids? Remember those famous handheld Japanese digital pets that came as a small device? Well, they were very widely popular among Western youngsters in the late 90s and probably even in 2000s. What we're talking about here are virtual children that can play with you, they can cuddle you, and they will even look like you. Where is this idea coming from? It's mostly coming from a book which was recently published called AI by Design, A Plan for Living with Artificial Intelligence. It's by Dr. Katrina Campbell, and she argues that concerns about overpopulation will prompt society to embrace digital children. We will hear this keyword overpopulation many, many times, and I want to make a digression a little bit later on and talk about this topic. So these computer-generated offsprings will only exist in this immersive digital world. It's known as the metaverse. It will be accessed and accessible using VR and AR technology as well. You can use a handset, and you can make a user feel as if they're kind of face-to-face with a child. That's the big idea. And this is what Katrina Campbell said in her book and in her interviews as well. Virtual children may seem like a giant leap from where we are now, but within 50 years, technology will have advanced to such an extent that babies which exist in the metaverse are indistinct from those in the real world. And further on, as the metaverse evolves, I can see virtual children becoming an accepted and fully embraced part of society in much of the developed world. We're already well on our way to creating the Tamagotchi generation, which for all its intents and purposes will be quite real to their parents. On the basis of that consumer demand is there, which I think it will be, that's her words, AI children will become widely available for a relatively small monthly fee, about $25 per month. And when I read that, I thought, wow, great. So they've found a really great business model. Wow. And she predicts that as many as 20% of people will have or will choose to have virtual babies rather. What else is she saying? That's her exact quote. Make no mistake that this development, should it indeed take place, it is a technological game changer, which, if managed correctly, could help us solve some of today's most pressing issues, including, of course, overpopulation. The virtual children would have, according to those who are designing these virtual babies, would have very much photorealistic features and bodies and faces, and that's thanks to AI and machine learning technologies. And they would be able to recognize and respond to their parents with the help of voice analysis and facial tracking. If you're not looking for full-time kids, well, you can simply switch off your child at any point in time. If a child becomes a teenage monster, as they usually do, that's the job of young children, right, of teenagers, well, you can simply cancel your subscription. Virtual children will have a minimal impact or on the environmental impact. When the tech is ready, they are saying it could offer tailored experiences to each user looking for a virtual baby. So it will be a very personalized experience. Now, going back to this point about overpopulation, let's see what people who are really got very deep into this topic think about the so-called overpopulation. And one of them is Hans Rosling. Hans Rosling, unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. He was a professor at Karolinska Institute in Sweden. He's also a very famous public health expert, and he's a statistician. And he's a great presenter. He really has a way with statistics and data presentation. If you've never heard about him, please go to Google or YouTube rather, and Google one of his talks, Let My Data Set Change Your Mindset. Is absolutely entertaining, hilarious, and you will learn so much. Rosling's favorite topics are really two. One is population growth, and the other one is the truth about the developing world, what's happening there in developing countries. And this is a truth that much of the developed world doesn't know much about. For example, if you ask an average Brit how many children would a Bangladeshi family have or a Bangladeshi woman have, they would probably say 5, 6, 7, whatever the case might be. But the reality is that it's only 2.5 and declining. So this overpopulation is kind of a little bit of a myth. There are lots of vast spaces all over the planet that are not even inhabited yet. And in his TED video in particular, Hans Rosling explains why ending poverty over the coming decades is crucial to stop population growth. So according to him, this issue can be resolved through ending poverty. And only by raising the living standards of the poorest in an environmentally friendly way will the population by 2050 will be somewhat around 9 billion mark. Now, this is all great on theory. Are there any implementations of this? And the answer of these artificial virtual babies or Tamagotchi kids? And the answer to that is yes. There is a New Zealand company which is developing a proof concept for virtual children. The name of the company is Baby Hex. And that's an experiment by, as I said, New Zealand-based company and called Soul Machines. Oh my God, what a name. And it's aimed at humanizing AI to make it more appealing to the public to interact with. The virtual brain's baby is composed of course, algorithms that deduce what is good and what is bad. Researchers programmed the brain to respond to certain commands and also use recognition tools to allow it to identify words and images. They then enable Baby X to learn how to respond to interactions, just like a real baby. For example, if a researcher holds the word milk, then the baby identifies the letters and say the word. The researcher then can praises the baby for doing so or giving the correct answer verbally, and that releases virtual dopamine. The baby then will learn that correctly identifying the word milk is good, and so we'll learn to do so more so in future. It's like reinforcement learning, really, and it's similar to a real baby. It will help baby Hicks to decide how to react to certain situations. I don't know what you think about it, but to me, that particular company, what they're doing is seems to me like Skinner's behaviorism on steroids. I have a problem with virtual babies. The very idea that you can have virtual babies on a subscription basis in a metaverse, to me, reduces the complexity of human activity, consciousness, love, thought, joy of parenthood, and reduces it to a simple human-machine or human technology interaction or paradigm, if you will. And that's, to me, a reflection of the standoff between very different futures of the world that we are now faced with the crisis that we're in, are trying to figure out. One of them, in my view, is insane, inhumane, and regressive. Metaverse, it's not a new project as such. It's at least 30-year-old project, depending on how you're counting it. It starts with Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. Then we got a few series of The Matrix and Game of Thrones and Avatar and Ready Player One. And finally, we have Meta in 2021, which is the most significant digital project. Are there alternatives? And fortunately, they are. I'm not familiar with all the alternatives, and what I'm discussing here today are only a couple of them. But I'm aware of three, at the moment, three alternatives to what I've just discussed. One is Asgardia. It's a project which started in 2016. Another one is NBCIS, and that's NBICS, sorry. And that's a project by the Russian Cosmos Society. Another new project started in 2017. And finally, there is this idea by Balaji Srinivasan of network state. And that's, he consolidated his ideas. He's a thought leader and entrepreneur in an upcoming book under the name of the network state. But I'm not going to talk about it because it's still not released. It's about to be released in summer. But I think whatever he's got to say deserves a very serious look. So today I'm going to talk about these two projects, Asgardia and NBICS by the Russian Cosmic Society. So what's Asgardia? And I looked at their website and what they're saying, did a little bit of research. Well, Asgardia is, as they call themselves, the space nation. It was formed, or rather established, announced at the Ritz Hotel in Paris in 2016. The leader of the project, now head of state, is Dr. Igor Ashurbayli. He is of Azerbaijani scientist. He announced the creation of this first space nation. He's got a PhD in engineering and specialization in computer science. The project itself is officially called Space Kingdom of Asgardia. There are almost all the continents are represented there. When I looked at their map, who is where the users are, it's Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the US. A lot of countries altogether, and it's more than 1 million people at the moment, 1 million Asgardians. They have their own constitution, their own parliament. They release 3 own satellites into the space, and they want to be recognized by the UN. Their mission, according to their website, reads like so. It aims to unite people in a transnational, equal, and progressive society to build a new home for humanity in space and protect our cradle, planet Earth. Our key scientific goal, they say, is facilitating the first human childbirth in space, a crucial step on our path to immortality as a species. Compared to the Tamagotchi babies, right? Do you feel the difference? And to achieve these scientific goals and build a society of the future, they're creating a fully fledged, independent digital state recognized by earthly nations. Asgardia aims to ensure peaceful space exploration. They want to protect our home planet from cosmic threats and eventually lead the development of new space law to prevent militarization of the space, which, of course, many of you would know is a problem at the moment. They have a decentralized economic system powered by cryptocurrency. The cryptocurrency is called Solar. It's a stable coin which is pegged 1-to-1 to euro, and their support, the stable coin itself is supported by funds deposited at an international bank. So if you're interested in this project, everybody can join, as long as you're a dreamer, you can become an Asgardian scientists, inventors, IT specialists, engineers, entrepreneurs, lawyers, educators, rise poets, artists, philosophers, all of them can join Asgardia. So I thought it's really a very, very different future. It's going into space. And if Asgardia is focusing on the physical expansion into space, the Nbics project, the Russian Cosmos Society project, is more about cosmic expansion of consciousness. While we don't necessarily are flying into the space, we can still be on Earth, but our consciousness is going to be expanded to comprise space. It's a project, as I mentioned, by the Russian Cosmos Society starting in 2017. What they want to develop and to nurture a new kind of global identity and a different model of society, which is somewhere at the interaction between human, technology, society, nature, and cosmos itself. It's very different from the human technology model, which is, as we discussed, very reductionist of the metaverse. Cosmos and nature are not even part of this paradigm. And meta or metaverse, if you look at that, it's the us humans that are being objects there. We're separated, we're switched off from society, cosmos and nature. Metaverse is kind of a new world designed and furnished by multinational corporations. It belongs to them. It doesn't belong to us. Going back to this project, the key principles and values are, well, digitalization is in the service of humans, sustainable development of human life. It's not about profit maximization and domination. Human beings are looked at and conceptualized, if you will, as subjects and creators. They're not objects and users or customers. They're creating an economy which is decentralized versus centralized and owned by all the participants. The project itself has the synthesis of three scientific and technological schools. The West, and particularly it's informed by theories of singularity and of zero growth. East, with its principles of harmony, and of course, Russian theories of sustainable development of human life, and kind of sub-theories, subfields within that, conscious universe, expansion of time and space, and the so-called no systems. And since we mentioned this term, let's look at what is a no system, or noosphere rather. It's a philosophical concept which was developed and popularized by the Russian-Ukrainian biogeochemist Vladimir Vernadsky, as well as Edouard Leroy and the French philosopher and Jesuit priest Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. The word itself comes from the Greek nous, from which is mind, and of course sphere. The noosphere, according to this worldview, is the third stage of Earth's development after the geosphere, which is rocks, water, and air, and then the biosphere, all the living things like us and animals. And these three spheres build on each other. For example, Our thinking needs to embody in the biosphere by the living brains of human beings and our technology. So the noosphere can be seen really as the rise of a planetary superorganism integrating all geological and biological and human and technological activities to a new level of planetary functioning. Human thought, according to this philosophy, is material, and actually, this is confirmed by empirical studies. Human thought is material, and we can change the world which is around us through our thoughts. Humanity, according to them, has got the responsibility for the development of the biosphere, transitioning to noosphere, and that requires a completely new social order and a new ecological and humanistic ethics. So I think that's a very important point. We need new ethics and a kind of new values. In human evolution, each time human groups have grown from foraging groups to cities to nations, they had to transition to new ethical and governing structures to maintain high levels of cooperation between them. So noosphere, in a very metaphorical sense, is what church calls Holy Spirit, or you may call it universal consciousness, if you will. Necrosphere is just the opposite. It's a counterbalance to holiness and humanity. It's a global system of a dead spirit, that's artificial intelligence. And it's feeding on perverted, degraded, and gene-modified beings. Now, what about the state of the project? It is a very large project. It's a large nation ecosystem kind of project. They're creating their own platform that includes governance and management of the public sector, of the private sector, communication, marketplace, education, social networks, generally all these verticals that a fully functioning nation and society, digital society has. As you see, all of these previous alternatives, they do heavily draw on technology, but it's technology in the service of humanity, not the other way around. So it's not only theoretical, scientific, but it's practical. Some of the elements of this decentralized system has already been built, and some are yet to be built. One of the constraints that they're facing is, of course, resources. And as it's a small group of people working, scientists and engineers, and they have small budget. If you compare it to Meta's budget, 10 billion, I think they're trying to invest in the next few years, that there's a huge difference between all these projects. And now a couple of parting thoughts here. What I've presented to you is really the different visions of the future, and it's a standoff between two worldviews, and that has been the topic of my recent shows, because I think that's probably the most important issue that's facing humanity and each and every of us on a daily basis today. What unites these projects, apart from the technology part, that they all go beyond the physical boundaries of planet Earth, one way or another. But one is focused on contraction of population, of human thought, of consciousness, and simply human agency. And it's driven by profit maximization, market dominance, and subscription models. It's virtual with Tamagotchi babies to complete the picture. Old and degraded stuff, in my view. And thankfully, we have all these alternatives. One alternative is focusing on expanding human life into space. Asgardia is working on that. And another one on building a nation scale and perhaps one day global scale digital platform to run a digital economy underpinned by cosmonoosphere's principles. Which one do you prefer? I personally have made my choice. And if you're familiar with any other alternatives, please let me know, because this is the battle that we are fighting right now, and we humanity need to win it. Please let me know. Well, thank you for joining me today, and I will be with you next time, in a week's time, at 2 p.m. Dubai time on Friday. Thank you once again.